TIG welding, tungsten inert gas welding, or more professionally known as gas tungsten arc welding, GTAW. Now, if you've ever heard the term stack of dimes, this is the system that created that term. Now, anytime you have an electrical current moving through your workpiece that meets up with an electrode to create an arc, that is an arc welding process. Now, with MIG and stick, your filler metal is your electrode. With TIG welding, there is a tungsten rod inside your torch that creates and sustains your current. Now, let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of TIG welding. There's several advantages to TIG welding. The first one is the arc. It is more concentrated. It gives you a finer point of heat that gives you more control over your puddle, but also more control over the input of heat into the material. The next advantage is there's no slag. It's not a flux-based process, so we don't have any of the byproducts exiting the puddle as it solidifies. So it's a cleaner weld. Unlike other systems, TIG does not produce any smoke or fumes unless your material isn't prepped properly. If you have any oil, grease, rust, debris inside the joint as you move through your weld, it's obviously going to burn off gas and produce some kind of smoke. That makes TIG welding a very clean process. But without all the smoke and debris coming out of your weld zone, this also gives you a lot more vision of your weld in progress. There's no sparks or spatter. Unlike MIG or stick, the filler metal is the electrode in those systems, where you're going to have a transfer of liquefied filler metal through your arc. This is going to create sparks and spatter spattering out from the weld zone as you go through your weld. TIG doesn't have that. It also allows you to see better. In my opinion, the greatest advantage to TIG welding is the ability to transition between materials just by grabbing a different filler rod. So you could be welding on carbon steel 1 second and then switching over to AC, grabbing a different filler rod and going in and welding on aluminum. This is also really great for welding dissimilar metals together, such as carbon steel and stainless steel. So to recap the advantages of TIG welding, you're going to have more control over your puddle, you're going to have better vision of your puddle and your weld in progress, you're going to have a cleaner overall weld, and you get to transition metals just by grabbing a different filler material. The first disadvantage of TIG welding is the low feed rate for your filler metal. This is a manual feed process. You are the one feeding your filler rod into your puddle as you move through the weld. So this takes a great deal of practice in order to get proficient in feeding your puddle as you move through the weld itself. The next one is the intensity and brightness of the arc. You don't have any fumes or smoke masking the intensity of the arc, so it's easier to get burned. This is why you should always wear the proper safety gear. Remember to keep all of your face and skin covered up while you're going through any arc welding process. The biggest disadvantage to TIG welding is it's a lot harder to learn. It requires what drummers refer to as limb independence. You're going to have one hand feeding your filler metal into your puddle. You're going to have your torch hand guiding the heat and the torch through your weld, but you also have a pedal controlled by your foot that controls the intensity of the arc as you move through and start your arc.